I'm with Sir Marc's team. I'm one of the job captains. Learning I made so we can Marc young I'm Leonard. I'm with Sir Jan's team. Hi, Sir Arlen. And this.
Learning and writing programming here as
Very nice.
I'm Lizelle from Team Law. I'm Jack from Team Russian. I'm Joyce from Team Russian.
I'm Marco. I work with
I'm Rachel from Team Survey. Josie from Team
Jane from Tessalon. Gerald from Team Marc.
Green from Team Marc.
John from Team Ireland.
Do you want to also introduce yourself, Pete, just so everyone is aware? What's your role?
I'm Peter. I'm a senior engineer in science.
Usually it's the guy, when you submit drawings, when you see the stamp, you see like his name, that will be him. We actually have two. The other one is Brian, and Pete is the other guy. Usually you see their stamp mostly in our official submittal drawings, so he's the guy who is issuing those. Okay, and if we are moving now, let me also introduce myself. My name is Marc. I was previously a PM here in the Manila office for around 10 years before I eventually moved to Dallas when Joe Walter retired. So he was my previous PM when I was still here in Manila. But now that he's retired, I took over his place. So now I just want to share with you guys on what is going to be your responsibility as a project manager or as a job captain, because it's a position that I also went through when I was here in Manila. So I just want to share my experience on how I do my management while I was here in the Manila office. You can grab a seat here. Hi.
Try to sneak into the back.
Or here, wherever you want. Okay, guys, good morning. So the presentation will be called CDC Manila Project Managers and Job Captains. Okay, let's start with CDC Project Managers and Job Captains Manual. So let me just read. CDC project managers play a significant role in CDC success. The project manager directly affects our employees and our clients each and every day. Projects must be successful for clients, otherwise they will seek alternate resources for our services. Without good leadership, our employees lose efficiency and morale. The purpose of this manual is to provide an outline of corporate policy, structure, and guidance for CDC project managers. I think most of you guys know that what CDC produces is service. And here in the Manila office, that service will be those drawings that we issue to our clients, shop drawings, fabrication drawings. That's kind of our product that we sell to our clients. So in order to have consistent clients who keeps on coming back and using our services, we always strive to provide them quality service, not just service, but quality service. Because at the end of the day, if we're not consistent in providing that quality drawings to our clients, eventually they will seek for other alternatives. Because I know that current world industry there's a lot of other companies who's also offering that type of service. But I guess the difference between CDC and those other companies is we always strive to do our best to provide our clients the best drawings, shops, fab, the best services that we can provide. So, and as project managers and job captains, you have a huge role in ensuring that your team is also aligned with that goal, in ensuring that everyone is doing their own task, making sure that we do provide that type of service to our client. So let's proceed with the next page. Yes. Okay. Let's start with kicking off the project. So what's the first thing to do when your Dallas PM gives you or provides you a new job? So usually the first thing we will do is gather all pertinent documents, proposals, bid set, architectural drawings, specifications, structural drawings, beam models, etc. So I guess that's self-explanatory. Usually, when your PMs provide you information, hey guys, we're gonna take a new job at our team. So usually, you have to ensure that you have all these type of documents, because to be able to start a job, you cannot go into a job blindly. You have to have these information to be able to at least kind of start doing something in that job. Usually, depending on the client, sometimes there will be client who provide system designs. There are clients who relies on us to provide the system design, so it varies. Then, of course, obviously we need architectural drawings. So usually, those architectural drawings is very crucial for us, because the first thing we usually identify is our scope. We have to know up to which point our scope is, because there are instances where we have clients that, even though it's a huge project, sometimes the client will just give us a portion of that building. It will not always be the entire building. Sometimes this client will just handle the podium. And sometimes not even the whole podium. Sometimes it's just a client. Sometimes it's just a function. So it varies. So it's very crucial that we know what our scope is. The specifications usually is also provided. This is where we see all the specs on the current wall type. Usually it comes in a PDF document. We receive those from the client. Structural drawings also, that is also crucial, just to make sure that whatever the architect is showing in their drawings, this structural is also showing in their drawings, because most of the time they do not match. So we have to be able to review those drawings and ensure that if the architect is showing a slab there, make sure, or steel in their drawings, make sure the structural drawings also showing that structure there. Because most of the time, that doesn't happen. And that's, we as project managers or job captains have to ensure that we inform the client or your Dallas PM, for that matter, and tell them, hey, this drawing doesn't match. So we do our reviews, we do our constructability reviews, just to make sure every windows, the current walls, has something to attach to, has a structure where we can attach to. So those are usually the first thing we do when we are reviewing drawings. So make sure we have a job number with the correct face setup. Usually this is being done in Dallas, and we just provided those information. Set up a folder, job folder in the server using the standard CDC folder structure. I think by now we already have a standard folder, subfolder structure. You always see when a new job's being set up in your server, and you see that we have the shop drawing folder, the fabrication drawing folder, you have the RFIs, you have the in from Manila, or in the Dallas server, it will be called in from Dallas and out to Dallas. So that's already the standard setup that we have. We also have I don't know if in Dallas we also have engineering folders, because most of the engineering works is being done in Dallas. So we do have also engineering folders in Dallas. Review the contract and bid set and make sure you understand the scope of work. I think that's the one I was explaining earlier. Review, schedule, and determine the size of the team you need to make the dates. So usually, your Dallas PM, usually before we start a job, your Dallas PM would have determined already the number of guys he or she need for a certain job or a certain scope of work. But for you guys here as a PM in Job Captain Manila, you also have a voice to tell them, hey sir, maybe we need one more to do this task. Because you have to tell them, you have to tell us if, because as a project manager, we also need your input. It's not always a one-way relationship when, as a PM, we just tell you what you need to do and just follow what we want you to do. It's not like that. We also want to hear your opinion on some matters. Maybe you can tell them, hey sir, maybe we need one more guy so we can, yes, maybe we need one more guy so we can actually meet that day. Because sometimes if we just accept what they told us, then the pressure is on us. That's when some cases you have to work overtime. You have to work more hours because the number of people that's working on that task is not enough. So sometimes you have to also voice that out. So because voicing that out, at least we're aware and we can plan ahead. We can help you to find solution on how we can actually find a better solution to meet those dates. So it has to be a collaborative thing. And it's not just a one-way thing.
If I can jump in real quick, Mark, one thing I would say, you guys are leading the teams here. You need to know what we have estimated for an hour. If you're not getting that information from your Dallas PM, ask them. When we price a job, when we do our estimates and do our proposals, we count the number of hours we think it's going to take to draw the elevation. We count the number of hours we think it's going to take to draw the details. Ask your PMs for that information. So you need to know. If there's 200 hours to draw elevations, you're not going to get it done in 1 week. It's going to be a really long week. Or you need 3 guys working for 2 weeks. But get that information from your PMs, look at it. It says you need 2 guys for 4 weeks, and they want it done in 2 weeks. That's an issue. So let's try to bring those issues up in the beginning and discuss it with your PM. Well, hey, there's more hours here than we've got to do it unless we have more guys. And you want it done in 2 weeks, maybe we need 1 more week, maybe we need 1 more guy. The more we talk about that up front, the better we are. The worst thing we do is call our client on Thursday night and say the submittal that's coming tomorrow is going to be in 2 weeks. They don't like that. If you tell them 2 weeks in advance, hey, we're not gonna make the submittal on the 19th, it's gonna be the 26th, a lot of times they're okay with that. So have that communication there with your PMs. It's perfectly okay for you guys to ask, how many hours are in this? What is the expectations? Because you're managing the team. We need to know what your guys need to be doing.
Yeah, and just to add to that, the Dallas PM usually we usually do our monthly billing. So your Dallas PM will actually know the number of percentage that has been used for that specific task and the number of hours remaining. So I ask you to ask your Dallas project managers if they're not providing you that information, you can ask them. They can tell you that exact number. So because if you don't know that exact number, you will not know how to plan ahead. You will not know what task to delegate to your guys. So I encourage you to ask your Dallas PM for that information. Then review the specifications and notify our client of any concerns and abnormalities. I think that's part of my explanation earlier. Determine who is on the team, job captain, CAD techs, beam operator, etc. Review staff applications and coordinate that with project schedule. So also, like what I was explaining earlier, you have to know the number of guys working on a specific task, so we can actually plan the schedule. And staff vacations, meaning if there are people who's gonna file for vacation, that's why we have this policy that you have to file your vacation at least 2 weeks prior, not just a day prior, not just a week prior. I know there are instances where there are emergency cases, and that's CDC usually understand those kind of situations. But if you do have like planned vacations, try to plan it ahead, because us PM, when a guy is suddenly not in the office and we have like a submittal for that day, what we usually do is we'll have to pull out somebody who's doing another task just to finish your task. So just be mindful of the effect of your sudden vacation to your other colleagues. Because, for example, John suddenly didn't show up, so then we'll have to look for someone who knows how to continue that task that he left. So usually it creates more issues, because sometimes if that person he's the only one working on that task, and now the other person is going to step in, has to study first, well, where did he left off? So it creates more issues, and we waste more time in doing that. So just plan ahead, and then usually your PM can also plan who can take over your task while you're gone. So next one, schedule and conduct a kickoff meeting with all team members. This is the meeting where an effective project manager will make sure each team member understands their role in the project. So like any other new job, we're gathering information, and we need to know what our goals. So usually your PM or you guys here will talk to your guys and discuss everything about the new job that you're working at. For example, what's the first goal? What's our weekly goal? What's our monthly goal? So because even though the client hasn't kind of pushing us yet, usually new jobs, sometimes the client will not push us yet for schedules, but internally, we should not be relaxed. Internally, we should still have our own set of goals, like a weekly goal. Oh, can we finish this task this week? Can we finish the next task this week? So it's still safer to have a small milestone rather than being so relaxed, and then the client suddenly, oh, I want DCP in 2 weeks. Then suddenly we all get crammed up and work extra hours because we didn't really have those goals. So it's better to have those goals set up per week or per month. So just talk within your teams about that. Then make sure to ask for a copy of design criteria and make certain you understand the information outlined on it. So usually the design criteria is being done in Dallas, usually by our engineers. So I think Pete kind of discussed that yesterday when he showed those design criteria. Usually that's where you get the tolerances, those information that you need to be able to start working for a job. Usually your Dallas PM can provide you that on the early stage of the job. Then preparing the first submittal and managing the project team. So have complete understanding of the project prior to having your team get started. The project manager is encouraged to spend time familiarizing themselves with the job and to map out a plan for delivery. This step is critical for the project to be successful. So usually as project managers or as job captain, you have get an idea on how you're going to tackle this new project or this new task. Usually, in my case, I usually already have an idea of the person who I'm going to put for a certain task, because as project managers or job captain, it's not where it's also our responsibility to kind of gauge how our guys perform. We usually know, oh, this guy is better in fabrication, maybe I'll just put him in this fabrication task. Because sometimes we kind of have a gauge on where the strength or the weaknesses of our teams are. So, and usually that helps because putting that right person on the right task usually helps us better. So just be mindful of that. Then clearly describe each team member role and provide time expectations that are largely driven by the estimate and project schedule. I think that's what Marty was explaining earlier. You can get those information from your Dallas PM, so they can provide you that information and ask them what's their expectations of you. Because sometimes project manager can be just vague and tell you, oh, just start the shop drawing or just start this. But you, as a project manager and job captain here, you have to ask for more information. Sir, what do you expect us to accomplish for this week? Rather than being surprised with an email from your project manager. Oh, by the way, SD, I need this tonight. So there it is. So just make sure you ask the right questions to your PM. Identify the difficult areas of the project and schedule a meeting with your Dallas project manager and project engineer to review them and develop a plan to address those areas early. Be sure you and your Dallas PM consult with our client, since their input will help expedite the process. So usually usually the difficult areas will always be the transition areas, because there was a time when we do shop drawings and we just concentrate on those typical details, typical intermediate, typical corner. And we usually leave behind those transitions because I know they're time consuming and they're the most difficult thing to draw or design. But it has to be the other way around. Typical details will always be typical details. And that's going to be easy for us to draw. We have to always assign someone to concentrate on those transition areas, because usually usually those areas are the ones who's gonna cause us some issues down the road. And usually it involves engineering consulting, because sometimes it involves structural. So sometimes we need also the client's approval if they even agree with the proposed design that we are planning to do in that certain transition. So it involves, just remember, those kind of design, the transition design, it involves a lot of coordination with of course, with your guys who's drafting, with the engineer in Dallas who's gonna check if what our design is even structurally capable of the loads that we have to impose in that design. And the client, would they agree with the design? Maybe Maybe it has engineering in Dallas, but maybe the client doesn't like to fabricate it that way. So everyone should have to be in the same page before we even finalize those kind of issues. Just keep that in mind, since it's involved a lot of coordination. The earlier we can address that, the earlier we can solve those kinds of issues. And by the time your submittal date arrives, you already have a proper detail for those areas. So just keep that in mind. Check in with every member of the team on a daily basis and monitor their progress and make sure they are aware of the schedule. You are responsible for their time. So like what we are explaining earlier, just make sure you're aware of the person's task, because there are some cases like I was explaining earlier, emergency cases when suddenly a guy got sick or he's not going to be able to work for a week. You as a PM or a job captain should know what this person was doing for that certain week. Because when your Dallas PM asks you, this guy is not going to be here for a week. For example, this guy is on a paternity leave. So you as a PM should know how to plan ahead and to make sure that that person's task doesn't stop, because the schedule doesn't stop. Even if you're gone one of your members will be gone for 2 weeks, the schedule doesn't move for another 2 weeks. So we just have to plan ahead on those. And every PM or JC who's handling a team should know the daily tasks of their team members. Conduct an AVER meeting at least once per week with your Dallas PM and the entire Manila team. Make sure each team member is included in the meeting discussion. Check their work several times each week to make sure they are on track. A little of your time can save days for your cat techs. So I think everyone is doing this on a weekly basis. As your Dallas PM, we also ensure that we meet you guys every week. And I don't think we have an issue with the AVER meeting on a weekly basis. And this is also the time where your Dallas PM kind of checks on you on our goals per week or per month. Sometimes we also address issues during those meetings, and it's very important to kind of during those meetings take that chance to ask questions to your Dallas PM, because most of the time during those types of meetings, the Dallas PM usually will also be the only one who speaks, and usually the guys in the Manila team just listens. But take that time, take that opportunity to ask all the questions you need from your Dallas PM, because there's nobody who could answer your question better than your Dallas PM. And by doing that, you save more time, especially if you have issues that you don't know if your Dallas PM will agree with that solution. Getting their input will save you time in drafting and designing. So if someone on your team is not performing up to your expectations, bring that up immediately to Toots or your Dallas PM. You are responsible for the performance of everyone on your team. Like what I'm also explaining earlier, as a project manager, as a job captain, we are responsible for every and each member of our team. Attendance, performance, everything, the quality of the work they are producing. We have to have an idea of what that guy's strength is. We have to have an idea of what that person's weakness is. Weakness doesn't mean that he's gonna be weak on that area for a long time. Maybe he just needs more development on that area. Everyone can improve in due time. So if we know that person's weakness, then we can maybe guide them to be better on that. So, next slide. Remind your Dallas PM to force the engineer to review in-progress drawings and a little of their time, or we can save significant time later. Do you have any input on that?
We'll do our best.
Yeah.
We will always do our best.
Yeah. So I don't know about the other teams, but in my team, we always make it to a point that if I have submittal on a certain date, I usually instruct my guys that the engineers has to have those drawings at least 2 weeks prior. Let's give them 2 weeks. Because there was issues before, like several years ago, I don't think it happens anymore, where sometimes because the schedule is too tight, we provide engineers the drawings like less than a week, so they wouldn't have time to do that, to review everything. So usually we make it a point to provide engineers 2 weeks prior. Sometimes it happens that we can't make that 2 weeks prior, but what we usually do is at least provide them something 2 weeks. Then we can always update that progress set.
Yeah, one thing I would say, guys, is if you have a quality set of system drawings, proposal drawings, something along those lines, and you have a full set of elevations, wall sections, and details, your engineer should be able to do about half to 70% of his work. Because that's all the framing, it's all the typical anchors, that's a good chunk of their job. They don't need a 100% done set that's the first thing they're looking at and the first time they're really able to get deep into a job. So don't be afraid. Once you've hit that milestone, you really feel like you've got a good set that kind of outlines, this is kind of what the job looks like. Get that in front of them so they can at least get the ball rolling, because that saves a lot of time on the back end, but they're able to start getting out ahead of you guys a little bit, so that by the time you're dropping a bunch of details in their lap, they kind of know what to expect.
Yeah, so that's where you guys come in as project managers, job captains. You have to kind of strategically plan your details. What do you think is a detail that's important with our engineer? Usually, in my experience, that will be the anchor details, because usually bulk of the engineering analysis is concentrated on anchor details. Because what's the difference of an anchor detail and some vertical details? Because vertical details will already be seen in an anchor detail. If I'm showing a plan of a mall with an anchor, I can already get that mall profile there. So sometimes we just have to plan which are the details that are important for our engineers. Joinery details, not that much. I don't know if you guys look at joinery details.
Yeah, I mean, just to, kind of piggyback up Mark, I would say probably half of our time is going to be dealing with all the framing, all the guts of what's going on with the system, and about half of it is going to be anchorage to structure. And a big reason why is because it's not just does the anchor work, it's did it get detailed correctly, do we have all the callouts that we need on it, do we have all the dimensions we need on it, do we have all of our plus or minuses. And just going through that and redlining all those and making sure it's done exactly right, it's conveyed in a way that the guy in the field actually knows what he's supposed to do. That's a huge part of what we're trying to do on our end and make sure it gets done right. So, getting those details, the earlier we can get those details and the more we can get those, in advance of the job, the better.
Yeah. So I guess you get the idea. Then all shop drawing submittals must be checked prior to them being submitted. Make sure to include checking time in your schedule. So all of the drawings that's coming out from this office has to be checked. And you guys, as a project manager, as a job captain, it's our responsibility, no exceptions, to review each and every drawing that's going out to Dallas. So just remember that. Because there will, even though if it's gonna be checked in Dallas, it has still to be checked here, because that's our responsibility as a team lead. We have to know that every drawings that being released here has been checked, and we agree with those details, because at the end of the day, when we screw up and the drawing, we submitted that to the client, and for example, it's fabrication drawings, and 6 mold died because of wrong hole locations. At the end of the day, we're not going to be looking for that specific person who drew that detail. It's going to be CDC. Our client will tell me, hey Mark, CDC screwed this up. So it's not like, hey, how did you screw this up? So it's not going to be that. It's going to be, hey, CDC screwed this up. We have to revise these drawings. So just be mindful that we are, those drawings that we produce, it represents the company as a CDC, and not just as an individual person. So each, because sometimes we think, oh, I'm just a drafter, I really don't care. We have to always be mindful that those drawings represents the company. So just be mindful of how crucial each of those drawings that we are releasing. So everything has to be checked, and that's no exception.
I just want to add something. You know, there are times I am hearing from you guys that we didn't have time, just send it out to Dallas. So just be mindful that you as a job captain, as a team leader, as a project manager, it's your responsibility to send the to check the drawings before you send it out to Dallas. Even if you do the drawings, or even if you're doing some drafting, you have to check your subordinate work. Okay? You have to make the effort. You have to spend time. You have to do time management. Let's say between 2 to 3, I'm going to be checking drawings. So you have to remind your guys that, okay, give the drawings to me before 4 o'clock. Things like that. You have to do time management. Don't make an excuse about you are so tied up with other jobs. Read the jobs and responsibilities that I have given you on the FPMs and MKCs. So checking of the drawings is part of the job. So please do that effort.
There's
So
no such,
I'm hearing some PMs in Dallas that, oh, there's a mess in the drawing. It looks like it has to be checked. So nobody checked the drawing before it was sent here. So that's very shameful.
yeah, there's no such thing as not enough time for checking the drawings. Now, if your team structure is someone in Dallas is a dedicated checker for it, then so be it. But if it's something where someone in Dallas is expecting it to be checked here, and that doesn't happen, and something happens, that can potentially be a change order that's the cost of the entire job. So you're not, you're not shortcutting it and saying, well, I'm doing this without checking, and I'm doing that because I gotta hit a submittal date, and, maybe we'll catch it later. That's potentially costing the company money. It's potentially costing us the entire cost of you doing that VAT package just because of one error. So don't think that shortcutting that is something that you can do and then, we'll just figure it out later. That is a critical part of what we do around here. That cross-checking, that having multiple people look at things, that's how we produce the quality that our clients expect. So that's a critical process what we do.
Correct.
Okay, let's proceed. The last one here. If questions or replies were not answered by the design team prior to first submittal, make sure to note those in shop drawings. In many instances, the first submittal is the best place to iron out all questions. Usually during the design process, during shop drawing phase, we usually send out RFIs, right? Usually ask this question to the design team, and usually sometimes, and most of the times, it involves structural questions, or where do we attach this anchor? Is there a curve here? Is there a slat here? So those types of questions. And most of the time, at least in my experience, usually those takes time. Sometimes take 1 week, depending on your GC or your design team. Sometimes it takes 2 weeks, it takes a month before we even receive the response. But your schedule doesn't change. You still have to submit on this date. So what do? We usually, what we do is we cloud those on those shop drawings and ask those, we put those notes on the shop drawing, because it's gonna be reviewed anyway with the architect. When we raise those questions in the shop drawings, when we get the return commented set for the first submittal, that's where usually the architect will respond. So sometimes they will say, oh, we have updated the architectural drawings to reflect this. Or we have updated the structural drawings to reflect this. And so you just have to learn how to put notes on your shop drawings and ask those questions correctly. And also, what thing I want to advise you guys, when asking questions to design team, to the architect, to the SEOR, or the GC, or the entire design team, let's not try to avoid to ask vague questions like, oh, what do you think should the slab edge be here? Don't ask those type of questions. Direct them to the slab edge that we want. If you know that that slab edge has to be 3 inches from the back of the wall, then tell them, we need this edge of slab 1'8" from the grid line. Because that makes our lives easier, that makes the architect's life easier, the SEO jobs easier, because they can just say, yes, we agree. Rather than asking a vague question, and sometimes if you ask vague questions, you also get vague answers. Sometimes if you ask unclear questions, the architect or the GC will just respond, oh, what do you think should the edge of slab be? Then you wasted a month already just asking that question. So try to direct them always to the direction that we wanted them to go. So if you need a 6-inch curve, then tell them, we need a 6-inch curve here by 8-inch wide, rather than, do we have curve here? If there's curve here, please provide the dimension. No, that's not how you ask questions, because that's a vague question. What if the architect, okay, we'll put a 3-inch curve there by 4-inch, and your mall is 7 foot deep. So you already know that would not work. Then you wasted time already. And asking another question, oh, by the way, we need the curve to be this size, by the way, and not that small. That curve, we can design an embed for that small curve. So just direct them to the design that we think would work, so that we're not wasting time in those back and forth coordination with the design team.
Real quick, Mark, I would even say, we're saying put these RFIs in before the first submittal. I would say if you have something that you're drawing and it's halfway finished and you know you've got outstanding RFIs, don't be afraid to put that note in as soon as you get it drawn, because that helps the engineers out, that we're not spending time engineering stuff that you guys know is only half complete, or we don't know what the hell's going on and we know it's going to change. It helps us to save our time by focusing on areas that you know what's going on, because we'll look at it and say, oh, this is half finished, and I've spent a bunch of time telling them exactly what to do. Well, you guys are like, oh yeah, by the way, we don't know what it is anyway. So it helps us to help you guys to focus on the areas that you know what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, that too. It saves a lot of time, not just for us, for engineers, and for everyone. So just be mindful. Oh, by the way, just in case you do have questions, just feel free and raise your hands, and you can I can pause and answer your question. I thought Gino was raising his hand.
It's got very important questions.
Contract drawings and models. Typically, models are not considered to be contract drawings. Lately, that's what we've been noticing on new jobs. The architect will issue like a 50% DD, or not even a CD yet, or 100 or 50% CD during the initial phase of the job. And usually when we receive those kinds of documents, we kind of know already that change is still about to come, because it's still a CD. It's not even an IFC yet, IFC step yet. It's not even a permit step yet. So usually during those phases from 50 to 100, even if we do receive 100% CD, it's still subject to change when they officially release the IFC set or the permit set.
Well, that may not necessarily be true. Typically, 100% CD should be construction
Yeah.
documents, and anything that comes after that should be change orders. unless they're doing something a little bit different.
Yeah, so that's why you have to make sure to ask your PM, to ask the GC or the design team, if this document will be the official document that CDC will be using to produce the first submittal. Because sometimes they will say that, oh, a set is coming this certain date, and that's the set they wanted us to use. So it has to be very clear what set we are considering as our contract document basis for that first submittal. And usually, architects will, usually not, those documents are usually in PDF form. But to be able to make our jobs easier, we usually ask for CAD files. And sometimes the architect does not provide the exact CAD file version of those PDFs. Sometimes they will just say, oh, please download this model. They will give you a link on the BIM 360 site. Or sometimes we do that in Dallas. I don't know if you guys do it here, or maybe your PM send you a link and you can download the model from there. But it's always our rule that those models are not contract documents. If those models that we download and we convert it into CAD did not match those PDF, the PDF still governs, because the PDF will always be the contract documents. Then that's the time where we have to verify those discrepancies to your PM, because your PM will know how to coordinate that with the GC. So, of course, there will always be discrepancies between those, because a model is usually a live model. It's being updated on a weekly basis. The architect will always upload a model on a weekly basis, and sometimes it's hard to track those changes. But as CDC, it's always been our policy that the PDF document is the contract document and not the model. If changes are happening along the way, like what Pete said, if the 100% CDs has been our official document, then those should be change orders by then. So you just have to be clear with your Dallas PM and informing them the changes that you are keep on seeing on the model. But don't use the model as a contract document, because
I want to emphasize something Mark just said, because you mentioned it, and I want to make sure everyone hears this. We are a service industry. We are going to provide a service, but we also get paid for that service. If you get 100% CDs, and they don't look anything like the 50% CDs that you were told to proceed off of, don't just go and change a bunch of stuff and say, well, it's in the 100% CDs. Throw up a red flag and say, hey, look, they changed a bunch of stuff. This is going to take me a lot of time to go back and rework a bunch of stuff that I did. We should generally get paid for that. Now, we may need to make business decisions and ultimately say, yeah, just go ahead and do it. But if you see something, say something, so that our guys in Dallas who may not have noticed that, or maybe they just sent you the latest contract documents so that you guys can do, the formal review of it. Make sure that we are aware when big changes are happening so we can potentially go back and get money for that.
yeah, and also it's also important to our client to know those changes, because maybe they did not bid that. Maybe the architect added an additional curtain wall in that area. So our client also needs to know that, because to be able for our client to pay us, they also need to get paid. So they need to know those changes. So we should always strive to have a contract document providing direction, or something in writing directing us to use information found in the model. So just like what I told you, usually there are cases where a GC or an architect will tell you, please use the model as the basis of your drawings, because that's the most updated information. So what we always do is make sure that's all in written. Usually your Dallas PM will send an email to the GC informing them, we downloaded this model at this date, at this time, and this will be the basis of our contract document. Sometimes that happens, but the important thing is everything is recorded. Everything is in black and white. So, because eventually, when they check our shop drawings and they tell, oh, we didn't design this that way, you should have to look at this drawing. We have those references that we can tell them, oh, then it's a change order because we clearly told you guys that these are the documents, these are the model we were using at that time when we made the first submittal. And as long as everything is in black and white, everything is written, we can back those up, those information that's being provided to us. We do not own downloading models on a regular basis and reviewing them for changes or additional scope. You should be notified by our client when a new model is available, and they should understand that our time to review the model will be included in the change order if additional work is required. Yeah, like I already told you earlier, models keep on changing on a weekly basis. And we are not responsible to download them on a weekly basis. That's not our job. If there are significant changes, it has to go through a process. The GC will have to supply a formal document of those changes. And we should not accept that, hey, download this model every Friday and check for changes. If that document has not been officially released yet, you will not see any clouds. There's no narrative of changes. How are you going to be able to find what you're actually looking for, right? Because the only way you can do that is going to print that model into PDF and make a blue beam overlay. And how long will that take? A week or two just to identify the changes? So no, we don't do that unless our client specifically tell us, okay, you can charge your time for this review, just tell us what are your changes. But it is our responsibility at the end of the day to review the changes, but just make sure you're not doing those additional tasks that's not part of the original task that we've been doing. So it has to be a collaborative team between your Dallas PM and our client in Dallas. Make sure to flag discrepancies between construction documents and models. So that's what I was talking about earlier. Any question though on this? Okay. Proceeding to the actual building information model. Get links to the architectural and structural models so we are not creating work that has already been done. Like what I was telling earlier, makes our life easier, and we do have CAD files to use as reference. The project manager is responsible for coordinating with the BIM personnel. So these are on jobs where it's part of our contract to do the model, and usually those models are being done in Dallas. We do have a Revit manager. I don't know if you guys have worked with Maya. She's kind of heading all the BIM personnel there in Dallas. So most of the case, at least in my job, she usually just used the shop drawing that we already submitted in creating her model. It depends on the job. Some jobs will require the elevations to be done in BIM model. We do have those instances. So we should coordinate that and making sure that our BIM personnel, whoever they assign in your team, has the latest and greatest information. Because if you know that you already have a second submittal on that set and we didn't inform the BIM modeler in Dallas, they might use the first submittal set and they would have just wasted their time using that reference.
Hello. You touched something.
Anyway, you can still hear me anyway. So just make sure that we coordinate. If you do not have direct contact with the BIM personnel down, you can just remind your Dallas PM that, hey, we have a more updated set, please coordinate this guy. Next, the project manager is responsible for all work in the building information model. So usually, this, like what I said, our model is in Dallas, so usually this is like more of a Dallas PM job in coordinating that. But you can also inform your Dallas PM on maybe where to get the latest and greatest information. Hello. Okay. Thank you, Joanne.
Battery is made in China. That's why.
Okay. Our goal is to use beam for DCPs, embeds, plan elevations, wall section, should use fab, only if fab is included in CDC scope, and convert that work to 2D sheets per submittals. The project manager must decide early whether the project will proceed this way, taking into account resources available. The Dallas PM will provide budget and our estimates to the modeler. So like what I've been saying earlier, it depends on the job, depends on what the client or the GC requires. Some projects, they want the shops to be done in Revit, some doesn't. So it will depend on a job-to-job basis. But just make sure that's being clearly coordinated with your Dallas PM. Make sure you understand what level of development the project requires. Typically, we quote LOD 350. We don't want to provide more in the model than what our client is contractually required to. Is the model for class detection only? Are MPES and anchors to be included in the model? Knowing the purpose of the model in advance. Assist us with scheduling the proper personnel. So this is more of the Dallas personnel, those who are involved in Revit. LOD 50 is what we usually quote in our budget. LOD 50 is just, I don't know if you guys, is there anyone who's doing Revit here or somewhere of Revit? So, can you explain what LOD 350 is? LOD 350. Okay. Okay, anyway, that's just the level of how detailed the model is, because I think the higher number will require more detail, like for example, because usually when we do BIM for a certain job, the only crucial thing there is actually the perimeter size of the frame, because usually the GC will just use that for clash detection. Are we clashing with the other trade? Are we clashing with the stud framing? Are we clashing with the concrete? Are we clashing with the steel, with the slab, or with the other trades? So, I don't know, do you guys assemble furniture, and when you see the manual, you see those very detailed 3D, that's higher than LOD 350, because those are small stuff that you need to see. You need to see every crevices of that extrusion. That we don't do that. Our Dallas models does not do that because it involves more time. The file will get bigger. So what they usually do is just get the perimeter frame of your wall, your glass thickness, your unit depth, because that's the most important thing. Because anything within our system, the GC doesn't really care. Or what they look for that, how they use those models is for BIM clash coordination. Any clash that I don't know if you guys are familiar with Revisto. It's a site where all the trades go to check all the classes. I don't know if any one of you guys has been involved where your PM wanted you to check some clash coordination that the GC has saw in their BIM clash coordination. Usually, it will show you a curtain wall clashing with the slab, clashing with the steel. So, and maybe your Dallas PM will ask you, can you check if our curtain wall is in the correct place? Or maybe, because it depends, it's a case-to-case basis. Sometimes maybe we do it incorrect, maybe our layout is incorrect, that's why it was flat. But most of the time, our unit is in the correct place. Maybe that stud framing is out of place. Maybe that slab is not in the correct location. So once we can prove that our drawing is correct and maybe the other trades is not correct, usually those issues is being transferred to those other trades. So just be mindful to make sure that we are checking all our drawings and make sure that we're not clashing with anything. Make sure you understand what level of development the project requires. Okay, I already said that, sorry.
Hey, Mark, I just went and confirmed with Marty, so everyone here knows, LOD 350 is gonna have all of your framing profiles just about perfect. It'll look almost exactly the way it is. Anchors will be in the model, embeds will be in the model, dimensionally accurate. You will not have all your internal framing fasteners and all the notching and all that stuff.
And sealants.
The next level up would be LOD 400, which is a fabrication model, and that's when you would need to, basically the model would look like all your fab drawings put together, but that's not what we put.
Yeah. Then like what I said earlier, anything within the system, like those small screws, small fasteners, we don't need to show that. They don't need that. BIM personnel need to be careful how much time they spend in BIM coordination meetings. Typically, they will only be available for the time in meetings that is spent reviewing our work. They do not need to sit through electrical, mechanical, etc. issues. Okay, this is more of a Dallas thing, but maybe I can just explain to you what this means. Usually, every job, we have what we call a BIM coordination meeting or a clash inspection meeting. And what does it involve is usually our person on Dallas, usually that's Maya, she will sit through this meeting and all of the other trades will be there, curtain wall, framing, SEOR, all of those involved in that job. And they will discuss every clash issues in that job. And usually those kind of meetings takes hours because they're not just dealing with the curtain wall, they're dealing with everything. So what we usually tell our clients is that don't just get us sit in that meeting if we know that our scope is being discussed. We don't sit in that meeting for 2 hours and just listen for the other trade. Oh, you're not framing with slab. I don't care about that. I just care about my curtain wall. So clashing with anything is my anchor in the correct place. So usually we tell our client that these are additional scope of work and we are billing this separately from the actual BIM budget. Because the BIM budget that we usually provide our client is just the task doing the model, not those extra work of coordinating all the clashes. Because those meetings in one of my projects, it will run for a year. It will run up until we start installing units. You really can't track how the amount of hours we'll be spending on those meetings. So no, we don't include that in our scope of work. But if our clients approve that, hey, well, okay, you can just bill it hourly every time you join the meeting, then we do that for them. As long as it's clear that it's clear with our client, then we do that extra task for them. Design assist and design development. Typically, our proposals qualify the number of hours allowed for this piece of work. At the end of every week, you should inform your Dallas PM of your progress and number of hours spent. If you suspect we are going to exceed the budgeted hours, you must discuss this with your Dallas PM. The need for additional hours so he and she can request the client for additional fees. Do not use your shop drawing fee for this work. So usually when we get new jobs, so this varies from client to client. There will be clients where they're going to provide you all the system design already. You can just go and produce the elevation drawings, the plans, sections. And usually we do have those clients. But we do have clients where we have to design the system for them. And that's the time when we will have this separate phase that's called design assist. So this is where we develop system, we develop all the typical details for a client, and usually this task or this amount of work should not fall under the shop drawing phase, because usually when we budget projects, the shop drawing that you see, the budget for the shop drawing is just the amount of work producing the drawings, embed, it can include embed drawing, shop drawings, detailing, so all of those stuff. And it doesn't include designing. So just be aware, make sure that information is clearly relayed to you by your Dallas PM, and ask them, do we have design assist budget for this job, because we need to develop the system for the client. And usually those design assist budgets is not that huge, because so that's why you have to keep track of your time. You have to inform your Dallas PM if you think that design assist space is enough or not. So they can talk. We can go back to our client and tell them that, hey, maybe we need more budget for this design piece. Maybe we're going to be exceeding what we propose. So it's just a matter of just voicing that out to your Dallas PM. Initial system design review of potential options the design team is considering should be part of this phase. So once we develop the system design, we usually send that to the architect, to the GC, and usually they comment on that, if they like it or not. So usually those are part of the design assist phase. Work that will be incorporated into project shop drawings, formulations, etc. should not be included in this phase. Once you start doing elevations, plans, for example, the architect approved the system design and all the dies has been accepted. Once you start doing your key plans, your extract for your elevations, that's not part of the design assist anymore. That all of the time spent on doing those has to be in the shop drawing phase. So that's a clear segregation of the design assist and the shop drawing phase. Communication with Dallas PM. Nobody likes surprises when it comes to time delays. You must inform your Dallas PM of any changes in submittal dates so the client can be alerted as soon as possible. So as a Manila project manager or job captain, we always kind of have to know how to gauge the schedule and the remaining amount of work that still needs to be done. If your submittal is, for example, tomorrow, Friday, if we know that we can't make it, not this Friday, I mean, say next Friday, if we know that we can't make that submittal next Friday, as early as now, inform your Dallas PM. Don't be afraid to voice it out, because sometimes we might be afraid to voice it out because maybe you think your Dallas PM will think that you're not as efficient enough to be able to meet that schedule. But you guys, as a project manager, as a job captain, has to have that idea that no, we still, even though the schedule is the middle is still next week, with the amount of work, with the number of people working, and like earlier, like I was telling, you also know if somebody will go on vacation, even though this guy will not be here on that week. So you kind of have an idea, no, I don't think I can make that the middle. Because for me, in my experience, as long as you can tell us as early as possible, the earlier I can inform my client, the earlier a client can inform the GC. And usually, if the GC is amenable with those change of dates, they will accept. Okay, we'll just submit. We need another extra 3 days to do the submittal. In my case, I've been kind of lucky that the GC agrees with moving the date, but that's not always the case. There will be GCs, especially if it's an asphalt submittal, those dates doesn't change because those dates are being planned ahead of time. So usually asphalt submittal, we do have to commit to that date. So just be mindful what type of submittal you're doing and plan ahead.
Yeah, just want to add, like what Marty said a while ago. When you first given the schedule by your project manager from Dallas, you have to study the job, you have to study the schedule. You have to study if the schedules given to you are attainable or not. If it's not attainable, you should do your numbers, okay? To how many hours you need to do the elevations, how many hours you need to do the detail, how many hours you need to do the feedback. You have to keep track of that. And if you think it is not attainable, the schedules given to you cannot be met, then you have to inform your project managers in Dallas. You have always to be proactive in communication with your Dallas PM. So it is very important, it's very imperative that we do proactive communication. We don't tell them that we need extra time the day before we submit the shop drawings or the fabrication drawings. They are the ones communicating with our client. So whatever you say, they will relay it to our client. You know, sometimes their hands are tied. You have to say yes to our clients. Then we will have to make a decision on what to do. And so your PM will have to make a decision. If he needs to add more people, then we will do that. But don't ask for extra extension the day before the submission time. Know your schedule. As a PM, as a job captain, you have to know. Even your job should know.
One other thing I'd mention, especially for the guys who are running big teams, if you know you're gonna have trouble hitting a submittal date, and the way you're gonna make up for it is you're gonna pull 10 guys off of FAB and cram 100 details in a week. Even if you're hitting your submittal date on your end, at least let your PM know that that's the way you're gonna do it. Because when that happens, we tend to kill our engineers. And even if you guys are done and you guys think you're squared away, a lot of stuff goes out not checked by engineering. And we can still wind up with egg on our face just because we can't keep up with what's going on. So if that's a decision that gets made, let's at least make sure we relay it up the line and figure out what needs to happen in Dallas for us to get that squared away, because that can make a big impact on what we need to do to get our work done as well.
Yeah. Keep in mind that we have only few engineers compared to our production. Engineers, we only have probably less than 20, and then they are multitasking. They're handling
2, 3, 5,
probably
Yeah.
sometimes 10 jobs at a time. So, like what Pete said earlier, if you have all the information ready, you have the elevations, E-plans, building elevations, then you have the typical details, typical anchors. Don't wait for so many weeks to hand them the shop drawings for them to check. Give it to them right ahead of time, or give it to your PM in Dallas, so that your PM in Dallas can coordinate directly with the engineer. That will save them time. That will save our job some time. So that will make us more money.
That's a hope.
Okay?
Yeah, so that's important to always coordinate with your Dallas PM, so everyone is on the same page. Establish a clear path for RFI submittals for your Dallas PM and make sure you keep track of them. I think this was discussed earlier. Just make sure that all RFIs are filed correctly and know which RFIs has been responded or answered. So like what I also told you earlier, some RFIs come back after like 2 months, a month, depending on how proactive the GC is. And sometimes your RFIs has been answered already on that first commented set that we got from the GC. Sometimes those RFIs that we officially submitted, sometimes you will already see the response in that shop drawing set that I comment. So even if we haven't officially received that response from the RFI, that for me, that's already an official document of that response to the RFI. Just to be mindful of those types of responses. Sometimes it comes in different forms. So sometimes it can be just an email that we receive from the GC answering that RFI. So submit a weekly report, project status and progress. Include if you are on track or not to make submittals, make sure you copy each member of your team so they are aware of the status as well. I think that was also discussed by Toots earlier. At the discretion of your Dallas PM, provide progress drawings and request for review comment. So usually your Dallas PM will request for you guys, can you send us a full set PDF of what you have done so far for this week? Because usually your Dallas PM will kind of browse through your drawings and put their input as well. Maybe you're not drawing something correctly. Maybe your Dallas PM, because us as Dallas PM, we receive a lot of coordination with our client. And sometimes we tend to forget things. And sometimes when we review your drawings, sometimes that's the only time we get reminded, oh, the client did say that we had to change it. I forgot to relay this information to my team. So that's kind of helps in at least flagging out all those information. Even before you produce hundreds of drawings, you can actually correct them as early as possible to avoid wasting time in updating those. I don't know, maybe a day or two before the submittal. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to tell you guys, this program has already changed, or this die, the client sent me a new die for this one. So, and sometimes it might affect also engineering. So it is important to make sure your Dallas PM is being provided with those progress, and make sure they also review those and get comments from them. That's, sorry, I didn't put that down. Okay, if an RFI or architectural bulletin constitutes a change, inform your Dallas PM of the changes and estimated number of hours required to make the changes. He or she can prepare the change order. No change order are worked on until written approval is received from the client. This policy is always in effect. So like what I said, anything that's not in the original contract documents that everyone has agreed to use will constitute as a change order. So this is, we usually catch this during our reviews, or sometimes there's going to be an email being forwarded to us by the client specifying what exact change. And usually your Dallas PM will ask you, for example, hey, SP, how many hours do you think you need to update this detail? So SP can provide around all, and if, sir, you might need a week with maybe 3 guys working on that. So giving that information to the Dallas PM, you can already kind of calculate how much the change order will be. And usually, if it involves engineering, we're also going to put engineering time in it. So
Even if it doesn't?
yeah, even if it doesn't. So yeah, then that's how we make money, to change orders. So general notes and disclaimers. In the eyes of lawyers, CDC is responsible for everything in our drawings. If there are items in our drawings that we did not design or engineer, we need to clearly note that in our drawings. That's why when we usually do our drawings, it's important that we clearly indicate, well, this material is by others or not by CDC. The term varies on how the client directs us to note that, but as long as it's clearly indicated, this is not ours, it's not part of the scope, this is not being engineered, that has to be very clear. Especially like engineering, we usually have those disclaimers we put on our cover sheet. Also with glass tempering, we also have those disclaimers that we usually add in our cover sheet. So just be aware. We have those standard disclaimer already.
Has everyone in this room seen those? Is there anyone who has no idea what Marc is talking about? Or does everyone know what the notes are that he's talking about?
Have you seen those disclaimers that we usually put on our drawings?
Those are really important for us not getting sued, so I just want to make sure everyone in here knows what those are.
Keep not getting sued.
I love not being in a courtroom, so you guys are critical to me help doing that. So thanks, guys.
Let's make sure we don't put Pete in jail. Door, louvers, operable vents, and such are typically not designed and engineered by CDC. These are buyout items that have been certified for use on the project. CDC is usually responsible for the attachment of these items to the framing and nothing more. Usually when you see door details, door jamb details, and we have this door jamb fastened to our mall, usually those screws, spacing and stuff, those are being looked at by our engineer. Yeah, that's our scope. But engineering this door system, no, that's not part. The vent, no, that's not included. Only those fasteners that attaches door system, that's being engineered. We are not responsible for defining glass makeup or localizing safety glazing. However, we own it unless our drawings specifically state otherwise. Caution should be taken when safety glazing is noted on our drawings. There should always be a note asking for the design team to confirm location. So this one is kind of varies with our client. Most of our clients, like Tower Glass, Vision System, and the AGA, will ask us to identify those temporary locations. And we usually have this guidelines. I think you already have that email from Marty way back where you have a sample of elevations. So what tempering should this glass be? Is it tempered both sides? Is it tempered inside? Is it tempered outside? So just make sure to use that guideline to identify where we should put those tempering symbols. And almost always coordinate that as well with your client and make sure they also agree with those tempering symbols. Because there are cases where we have done jobs where the design team will dictate where they want the tempering locations are. And in those cases, we have to be very, very careful and making sure everything is in black and white, that we do have clear coordination that we received this document from the GC, from the architect, and they wanted this glass to be tempered. Because that will cover us in the end. That we did not decide to put this tempering here, but the GC kind of required us to put those tempering. Because that also happens. I did experience those type of coordinations where just following the code, we know we don't need that temper, but sometimes they will require us to put tempering. Just make sure everything is coordinated in black and white, and your Dallas PM should also be aware of that.
I'm going to mention something to this group that I also need to mention to literally everyone else in the company. The latest building code, the 2024 building code, has actually changed the safety glazing provisions, especially for the, you guys know what the 20-foot rule is, where the outside is one and the inside is the other. That height is actually going to change in the 2024 International Building Code, which will not necessarily be adopted by states individually until sometime between 2024 and who knows when into the future. Some states don't update it for every 10 years. Chicago, for example, had the same building code for 50 years and then they finally updated it. So sometime in the next year, it's very possible, I expect we're going to release 2 separate guidances. One is going to be the 2021 and older version. The other is going to be the 2024 IBC and newer version. Whenever that comes out, it'll be really important to make sure you understand which building code you're operating under and which guidance you want to use. So that's coming. Just a PSA so y'all know it's coming.
Yeah, so just make sure you coordinate that with your Dallas PM, just to make sure you're using the correct building code. Insulation and fire saving details should be provided to us. Be sure the drawings clearly identify these items as by others. Yeah, usually we identify those installations by others, but there are clients that will tell us, oh no, this installation is actually part of our scope, or this fire saving is part of our scope. And usually they will provide us information. Just make sure we ask our Dallas PM to ask the client to provide those specific information, because there are instances where we have to put the specific code of that fire stop in our drawings. Sometimes we have to include it in our cover sheets. Sometimes there are like guilty fire saving catalog that we have to include in our cover sheet. Just make sure that information is clear if it's our scope or not, and the client should always provide that information for us. The consequences of potential litigation are costly, so be careful of what is included in our drawings. If you have questions, please discuss it with your Dallas PM. That's what Pete's concern is earlier. We have standard disclaimer notes to put on drawings, but use them only when required. So just be mindful on when and when or where we have to use those disclaimers. I think we have, everyone is aware of those standards there that we usually put in our drawings. And sometimes we do receive comments from the engineer if they don't see a certain disclaimer in our cover sheet. Sometimes our engineer will advise them, okay, please add this disclaimer in your cover sheet before I officially stamp that set. So sometimes we do receive comments from engineers. Subsequent submittals. Our proposals typically allow for 3 submittals. By the way, CD submittals are considered official submittals unless the contract specifies otherwise. As long as our client and CDC is on the same page that those submittals are officially released. Usually official submittals are the one where we have a complete set of shops, we have a complete set of counts, everything is stamped, that's a date. Usually for us, that's already considered an official submittal. So just be aware what type of submittal we are issuing. You can always ask your Dallas PM if that's an official submittal, or maybe the client is just asking for a glance step for the glass statement. So you have to be very clear because we don't want to waste a stamp that's not going to be used for an official submittal. Progress submittals are not official submittals. The submittals are for the Dallas team and the clients only. Like what I said, sometimes clients will ask progress set for their takeoff, material takeoff. File transfer and storage. All file transfers are temporary. Files on these sites should be removed on a regular basis. Files left longer than 30 days are at risk of being deleted by the IC department. So I think this is more of the in from Manila, out to Manila folder in your server. Please do not make those folders as your file folders. Those are temporary location for stuff that you're sending to Dallas and you're receiving from Dallas. I usually tell my guys that after every end of the week, we should delete those files that we put in those folders. Because if you remember that issue we had when we got hacked, one of the issues, which is time consuming for our IT, when they back up those files or where they put those packed files in our server, those files in from Dallas or out to Dallas, those are really, really huge, and we don't usually use them. So just be mindful that those files eats up the capacity for a server. So make sure those are getting emptied out every end of the week. So yeah, that's the one. All file transferred should be uploaded to the project folders and located in the proper subfolders. Like what I said, if you receive something from Dallas, if your Dallas PM sent you the most updated shop drawings, download it, overwrite the files here. Just make sure they have the most updated and not you. So, because maybe you might update something here and you didn't send it to Dallas, and Dallas sent you the files that they think is more updated, and you overwrite your files, then you updated 5 files here, then you already wasted that your time spent on those details. So it's usually a constant coordination and making sure which office has the most updated set of drawings. Because sometimes it's here, sometimes it's in Dallas. So, and usually during submittals, and we get, sometimes we get last minute comments from engineer and we do update some details in Dallas. Usually even if you don't receive email from your PM, I would highly advise to ask them. For example, you submit something Friday and it gets submitted to the client on Friday. If you don't hear any email from your PM on your Monday, ask them, hey, were the files updated in Dallas? Were there certain files or details that been updated in Dallas? If there are, please send us to us before we start working on that project again. Because sometimes PM might forget to send those files to you and they get updated in Dallas. And sometimes maybe you have to continue on working on those same files the following week, and you're already working on a file that's not updated anymore. So just make sure that you remind your PM to send those files to you. So you can also update the Manila server. Any digital file transfer outside of CDC should have the lot signature in the email with our identification agreement. I'll explain this to you in the next slide. Our policy is to store all project files electronically. If there are paper documents that need to be stored, scan and replace them in the appropriate electronic subfolders. I think all the documents for the past couple of years has always been in PDF form. I don't think we actually scan printed papers anymore. So just make sure they're in the proper folder. If we receive documents from our client, we have those in from client's folder. So anyone who will need information in your project folder, they know where to go. For example, I need to look for Melcher's job fabrication of this part of the building. I know I have to go to this fabrication folder. I can see what maybe priority or phase I should look into, then I can look for that drawing. Or maybe I have to look for a certain shop drawings that been submitted by this team, so I know where to go. To go to the drawing submittal folder, I have to look for that specific, say maybe the tower portion of the building. I can look for tower shop drawing for submittal. So make sure your where is it located, and try to insert effort on naming maybe a correct name for that file that you're sending. It makes it easier for anyone who's browsing through your folder to look for those, especially engineers. Sometimes we'll just browse to the server, right, and look for certain files. So, yeah, question? Oh, okay. It's just itchy. Okay. So this is the lot signature. If you don't have this, blame Janelle. So usually, when you create a new email, usually if we are sending CAD files to the client, usually this is being done in Dallas. I don't know if your Dallas PM instructs you to send CAD files directly to the client, but usually this is being done in Dallas. So when we send electronic files to the client, we usually in your new email, you have this signature category where you can just select what type of signature you want to be seen. And you have to choose this Dallas plot LOT, and this will give you all that disclaimers that we usually provide just to make sure it covers us, just in case somebody uses our CAD files as their reference. So this is important for us. So next one is, okay, bear with me guys, we're almost there. Record drawings and as-built. Final submittal should typically be noted as for record. CDT does not typically provide as-built drawings. Because as-built drawings is kind of tricky because those information has to come from the GC, because we really can guess what happened in the field, what changes happened. So if so we usually don't do as-built drawing unless being directed to by the client, and it usually it's an additional task on our end. Field fixes are generally hot since field personnel often are waiting on them. Be sure to prioritize these when asked to prepare them. I'm not sure if you guys do field fixes here in Manila. Have you guys experienced doing field fix for your jobs PM? Okay, so Maybe, I guess it depends on the magnitude of the tilt fix, maybe, because there are small tilt fixes that maybe your Dallas PM will not even bother you to update. Maybe sometimes being updated in Dallas, because usually tilt fixes will always require an engineer for them to look at, because usually the client will always require a revised count as well, or a new stamp as well to be issued.
Sometimes we just submit Libby Mark and don't even bother the PMs, so it
Yeah.
varies wildly.
Yeah, like what I said, it depends on how huge the issue is. Sometimes it just can be addressed sometimes by a letter, by an engineer, just put a stamp, and that's already good for our client. So it depends. But if we do work on tilt fixes, make sure you have all the information you need to do that specific tilt fix. If the slab moved, you have to know. So how much movement did it move? For example, if you're maintaining a 3-inch gap between the back of your system to the back to the edge of the slab, so the slab moved all 2.5 inches. So I don't have room for anchors. So I have to relocate my anchor now to maybe a beam structure below the slab. So that happens. So you have to exactly know the issue even before. Sometimes I think your LCM will already know how to resolve that issue, and they will just direct you on how to draw it correctly for them. If a build fix or a not build is our fault, inform your Dallas PM so we do not invoice the client for this time. That time will be logged, but will be written down the billing. So there are instances that maybe we did not draw it correctly. Maybe it's our mistake. That's why when they're actually installing the unit, they can't install the unit. And it happens. So just make sure that your Dallas PM is aware that it is our mistake, because we're trying to develop a relationship with our client, and we just don't charge them any extra work that we do. Because sometimes we're doing that extra work because we did screw up during the drawing process. So just be mindful of that, and always have that conversation with your Dallas PM that maybe this is our fault, and your Dallas PM will know how to handle that kind of situation. If as-built drawings are requested, then we need markups provided to us showing the as-built information to be included in the drawing update. In addition, if the drawings are stamped by CDC, we must add notes stating that as-built information was provided to CDC. Like what I was telling you earlier, we can't guess what actually happened in field on the site, what modification has been done. So if we are being requested to do as-built, make sure all those informations are being provided for us, even so we can do those revisions correctly. So just be mindful that always ask your PM to maybe push the client to provide all those information, because if we don't have that information, then we can't draw that correctly.
And be sure to note it, because unless we note that the information is provided by others, they're assuming I went out and walked the entire building, which I have never done. So.
So be mindful of that, guys. Die drawings. Typically, CDC provides CAD files of shapes to our clients so they can have die drawings prepared by others. There are exceptions where CDC prepares die drawings, but that is unusual. We typically do not include time for checking those die drawings prepared by others or reviewing metal samples. So these are usually the die drawings that we receive. Sometimes like what I said earlier, it depends from job to job. There are jobs where the system design is already provided to us and we don't really have to review every dimension of that die because the system is already existing. And there are times where we are developing the die drawings for the client, the system design. But we usually develop the die, the profiles, but the client will still send those drawings to the extruder. And the extruder will usually tell us, oh, we can actually extrude that design, we have to kind of tweak it a bit, modify that a bit. And usually, our client has to also be the one responsible in checking those dies on their end. I mean, we do help them kind of check if we think the dies still work, but we usually don't. If this client send you like 50 die drawings on extruder, so we don't usually do that for them. I mean, we can help them, but we don't really spend time reviewing those tiny dimensions in extrusion drawing. So that's it, sorry. All die drawings, if provided our project, must be reviewed prior to release. So usually, because also if we're the ones who design the system, also our engineer checks the constructability of the structural of those, if we design a mold, if they think it's not thick enough, usually our engineers will suggest a thickness dimension. So usually it's a collaborative team thing between our client, the engineers, and what the architect wants to see. So for rubber die drawings, usually these are gasket. Pay special attention to the durometer and compression fitting. All rubber die drawings must be reviewed by Marty prior to release. So usually gaskets, it's already been provided. Usually they are existing already. So there are rare cases that we design gasket, but most of the time it's already being provided. But just in case we are asked that task to draw gasket drawings, we have to check with Marty on that one.
Who's here? We're gonna be talking for lunch, quick. You gotta take these.
Yeah, so we have,
You gotta wrap up.
yeah, wrapping it up. Fab drawings, we have to know our scope on the fab drawings. Make sure you know who's responsible in doing the verticals, horizontals, the units. So make sure to plan ahead on whose task should be doing and who's gonna be your checker, who's gonna be doing certain scope. So that has to be clearly planned ahead. We will give you a copy of this one, don't worry. Yeah. Okay, do project closeout. Once you're done with the job, try to ask your PM to ask your clients that maybe they can provide pictures. We don't usually go to site to see the actual building, so maybe they can just send us pictures on the project or the status of the progress of the project. So this is the last slide. I'm just gonna go through it very quickly. Take ownership of everything on your project. Accept. This means accepting responsibility for your action and owning the outcome of that decisions that we make. Being proactive in your role, in understanding the purpose of your duties, and achieving your goal. Project managers are not a pass-through. Take time to understand questions by your subordinates, information documents flowing in both directions. Team members are your greatest asset. Treat them as you would like to be treated. This works both ways, positive and negative. Remember, do not take everything personally. You are a role model for your team. Don't underestimate your influence in the company. These project managers are the best of the best, and I agree with that. Your job is not easy. Some days it's just plain awful. Try to keep your demeanor in check and on an even keel. So this just means that your behavior towards others, if you don't want to be treated that way, don't treat others that way. Displaying confidence and respect and willingness to also listen to others, and you have to be just stable and consistent. And yeah, that's it, guys. So thank you.
Sorry to squeeze you.
No, it's okay.